Thank you so much for attending my PowerPoint presentation on how to beat cheese in Dota. The first hero that we're going to be talking about is one that frustrates mid players around the world, even those that pick him, and that hero is Huskar. This hero is famous for dumpstering lanes in a way that very few other heroes can, and converting that one lane into a very dominant mid game. Now, if you're the unlucky guy who has to play against a Huskar mid, I'm sorry to say this, but you are going to lose the lane. It's only a matter of how much you will lose it by. Because while he is going to basically have free reign of every creep wave, there are a few things you can do in order to get the most out of a tough situation. And almost all of those tricks boil down to being your own support. Oh, and managing creep aggro. Starting with that second tip, the first thing you're going to do whenever the creeps meet for the first couple of waves is draw creep aggro and bring his melee creeps over to your ranged. Doing this effectively throws away the chance of getting a last hit on the range creep, but it's okay because you weren't going to get it anyway. Hopefully you at least get one or two of them, and congratulations, you've gotten more out of the lane than you should. This strategy will work for a while, but eventually the Huskar will begin manually casting Burning Spears and standing behind your creeps in order to zone you away entirely. Once this begins, you can either begin stacking the jungle if you're a hero like Leshrac or Zeus so you can farm it later, or ganking before you hit level 6 on heroes like Queen of Pain or Razor. Other than that, just hope that he pushes the lane on accident and you can get some free CS. Now, if you're playing against a Huskar, you or someone else on your team needs to buy some form of anti-heal. It's really dependent on the position, and many of the options are quite expensive, but Spirit Vessel is by far the most accessible. You don't need to buy a pair of stat boobs, nor do you need to spend more than 2,000 gold on a recipe, and you're upgrading Earn, an item that is already very powerful. That should buy enough time for another person on your team to eventually get another form of anti-heal, though there are other ways of dealing with the Huskar as well. If you can move around as a team, similar to how you would play against a Nyx assassin, the Huskar will have to be very, very careful about when he goes in. He's a very momentum-based hero, and just a couple of deaths in a row is enough to grind him to a halt, and after that, he's basically just food. Now, Burning Spears is undispellable, so there's not really any heroes you can buy to directly deal with that, but there are a bunch of other heroes that you can pick in order to either deal with his break or actually kill the guy. Anti-healing abilities like AA's Ultimate or Doom's Doom are great choices, or you can preempt the healing entirely by going a hero with a built-in break, like Viper or Hoodwink. Necrophos is often touted as a major counter to Huskar, and this is true to an extent. He's got the talent that reduces regen whenever he's in Heartstopper or a range, but note that he actually loses the lane really hard, so if you are countering Huskar, you don't want to start the game against him. Lastly, because he does get all that free magic resistance, you're going to want to bring some physical damage to the party. A few crits from Phantom Assassin is an excellent choice for putting him down, but Wind Ranger is also a potent tool. You can use Wind Run to help deal with Burning Spears, and your ultimate deals enough physical damage over a long enough period of time that there isn't really much he can do about it. Just keep in mind that when you do win against a Huskar, the odds of him getting nerfed next patch slightly go down, so if the game is looking rough already, feel free to take one for the team. Real quick, I'd like to plug my Patreon, something that helps me keep this channel sustainable. I've now declined not one, but two different gambling sponsors, which according to the internet makes me a good person. Sign up today to watch multiple bonus videos from last month, and if you go for the higher tiers, you'll get goodies like handwritten letters or custom audio recordings from me. Thank you all very much for your continued support. Next up is Broodmother, and if you're playing against a guy with a Chinese name and he locks this in the final phase, I'm sorry, my child, but there was nothing I could do. But if their name is in any other language, there are a few things you can do to potentially eke out a win. Starting early on, the biggest thing against Broodmother is to avoid trading with her at all costs. She's going to heal up inside of her web, and she has insatiable hunger to lifesteal if she really needs to get her HP back up, so trading with her is a bad idea in 99% of cases. Instead, and this scales even up to level 6, you just want to clear the wave as fast as you can and then leave. Don't stick around for her to take a bite out of you. Now once she does get her ultimate, she's going to be bouncing between the jungle and the lane in order to maximize her farm with all of her babies. Your mission now is to kill those babies, but there's only a small handful of mid-heroes who can do it effectively. So if you can't clear them out, the next best thing to do is to not tell your supports to come help you. There is absolutely nothing a Broodmother player likes more than when a Rubik player with stars in his eyes begins waddling down the river in an attempt to gank them. The Broodmother player is very well aware that an underfarmed mid, even when combined with a Rubik, is not going to be enough to take her down in the early game, but the Rubik player doesn't know that. Unless your support duo has a ridiculous amount of CC and both are willing to come at the same time, do not ask for ganks. They're just going to die. Now, if you're not privileged enough to be able to kill babies, the next step is to just play single-player Dota for the second half of the laning stage. You can't trade with her, you'll die to the spiders, and defending your tier 1 is usually not a good idea, so instead just jungle, gank lanes, do whatever you can, but stay out of her way. Losing a tier 1 very early on sucks, but it's not the end of the road. Losing a tier 2 shortly afterwards, however, can be a bit of a pain in the ass, so when the Broodmother is that far forward, it might be time to launch a defensive move. Now the primary counter for Broodmother are heroes that can take advantage of all those spiders in order to increase their damage, think Axe and Earthshaker. If you're especially funny, you can have a Grimstroke come by and use his Q just right to make sure that Broodmother is the final target hit by it. If you're lucky, she will instantly pop like a grape, but if you're not, she now gets Grimstroke dinner. So dealing with the spiders is one thing, but the other half is dealing with her insane amount of right-click damage. Now Insatiable Hunger lasts for 14 seconds at level 4, so it's not reasonable to try to kite the entirety of it. But taking away a target for just a couple of seconds is very valuable because she's oftentimes reliant on not just the bonus damage, but the lifesteal. Force staffing away also gives you time to recover from the incapacitating bite debuff, giving ranged heroes a chance to lay into her. Now if you are feeling vengeful against your position 4, feel free to call him over and ask him to gank at around 5 minutes and 15 seconds. You won't believe what happens next. And now for Meepo, a hero with a very strong laning stage that people still get mad at you for losing the lane to. Once he gets his second Meepo, he's going to be double poofing the lane and there's really not much you can do about it. And so, just like with Broodmother, you kind of just have to ignore him and play some single player Dota. Farm the wave as best as you can, stack camps, all that. But the laning stage isn't what Meepo is known for. Instead, it's that insane mid-game power spike once he gets an item or two. In these cases, it can sometimes be a good idea to just ignore him. Meepo's power spike is very strong, and he doesn't exactly fall off anytime soon, but if you can sack all your tier 1s in order to get an item or two on your position 1 and 3, you definitely should do it. If you choose to go fight him and he kills you, then his power spike is effectively extended not only by him getting stronger, but you getting further away from a blink dagger. Just let him take some of your towers, it's not that big of a deal. But when it eventually does become time to fight the Meepo, maybe he's taking the tier 2 mid a little bit too early, the most important thing you can do is communicate. When one Meepo dies, they all die, so you don't have to worry about all of those full health bars hanging out around him as long as one of them is on half HP. Communicate with your team, use voice chat and pings in order to get the right Meepo down to the right HP level for you to burst them. I cannot stress enough just how annoying it is to be going against a Meepo and have the entire team targeting different Meepos. The game doesn't have to be a 9v5. The true counter to Meepo is your microphone, but if you don't have those, you can always pick one of the heroes in the bottom left. Each of the Meepos counts as a full hero for Elder Titan's damage accumulation, letting the briefcase hit harder than ever. It's also very difficult for the Meepo player to micro everything away from both Stomp and Earth Splitter, meaning that all of that insane amount of damage becomes a hell of a lot easier to do. Troll Warlord excels in single target damage, allowing him to burst down one Meepo while locking them in place with all of the nets. Plus, Meepo's own damage doesn't really matter when you're ulted, because you can't die even if you want to. As for Earthshaker and Winter Wyvern, if you hit the R button, the Meepo should die. Now when he has all the Meepos bundled together, if you squint your eyes a little bit, he looks like a creep camp, and that's the justification for why you should buy farming items against him. Battle Fury allows you to deal damage to all of the Meepos at the same time, and Mjolnir is similar, plus the active works against them all. And if he's about to poof out of your perfectly timed gank, there's few things in Dota more satisfying than getting a Skull Basher proc right before he goes off. Now earlier I mentioned that a microphone is a big counter to Meepo, and while that is true, it can also work against you. If you're complaining about Meepo double poofing the wave at the start of the match, everyone on your team will think you're a bitch and be less likely to listen to you later on. In the same way that a ninja swordsman dedicates himself to tracking down the man who killed his master, I have dedicated my entire life to countering Tinker. And the first thing that you're going to learn when you walk down the path I have trodden is that you basically have to play single player Dota for the entire laning stage. As soon as he hits level 3, he's going to walk up to the lane and show you how hard he can pee by mashing March of the Machines to clear the wave. This is a competition that you simply cannot win, and even if you manage to kill Tinker, he's still going to outfarm you by the 10-minute mark. To deal with it, you want to make a really big rotation right when the second siege creep spawns. At 10 minutes, check the rune, get it if you can, and even if you can't, you're still going to be going to a side lane. Show up there, make some action happen, you don't even necessarily need to get a double kill, you just need to zone them away so that your siege creep can do the heavy lifting. This is because taking down all of his tier 1s is the single most impactful thing you can do against a Tinker before the mid game. Level 1 King Conveyance can only teleport to structures, so if you're able to take those out of the way, he's going to have a much harder time getting to level 12. And even once he does hit level 12, your creep waves can now push further into his side of the map, meaning that he has more of a mess to mop up before he can deal with you ganking his carry. But even if you're able to get that done, you're still going to have to eventually deal with the late game Tinker, in which case there's a couple different items you should buy. Orchid is an obvious choice because he's a caster hero, and it prevents him from refreshing his shield. Plus, the magic damage at the end is going to secure you a kill once, and you're going to feel very good about buying it. Harpoon is also a good choice on melee heroes because when his shield runs out while he's using the core facet, he's going to do a zesty little blink away, and this allows you to get right back on top of him before he can refresh it. And while it's quite expensive, Nullifier deals with the shield right away while also preventing him from using an E-Blade or something on himself. Even if things are going rough, just remember that Tinker players never seem to save for buyback, so if you kill him just once, there's a good chance that you can win the game off of that and that alone. And if he does buy back, that means that you managed to kill him, so just do what you already did. I wrote a little bit about the apparent balance philosophy that Valve has when it comes to cheese heroes. Feel free to read it if you like. And finally, Arc Warden, which is a very different flavor of cheese from the other picks, but I definitely think still qualifies. Now, I am assuming that you read Flux and you understand how it works, and you've probably also seen Spark Wraith in action, so the answer should be obvious. Step 1 is to aggro his melee creeps and bring them over to your range, which accomplishes two things. The first is that standing near the range creep will negate any damage or slow he could be dealing with Flux, and it will also force him to use Spark Wraith in order to secure the last hit. He will get the last hit, but that's a Spark Wraith going up the butt of your range creep, and not your hero. If you're playing the right hero, you can contest the range creeps early on, but later he's going to get to Flux and Spark Wraith you, so honestly, don't even try. Just keep using creep aggro as well as you can in order to farm as much as possible, and then later on, know that you're going to jump his bitch ass. Arc Warden is not tanky at all, and you don't need to kill the Spark Wraith when he summons it in order to get the kill. Instead, once the end of the laning stage rolls around, try to get your team to interfere with Arc Warden's game plan in some way. He's likely going to be farming the creep camps that are close to the wave, so just pop a smoke and head there, and you're likely to get the kill. Now later on, once he has more points in W and a bunch of active items, that's going to get a little bit more difficult, but the game plan should always roughly just be to jump him. Now jumping on top of him is always a good idea, but to be honest, Arc Warden's biggest weakness is repositioning. He's extremely reliant on his W as his only real defensive ability, so if you have a Magnus or a Vengeful Spirit or just someone to buy a Harpoon, that'll go a long way towards dealing with it. Now the items that you'll be going depend quite a bit on what the Arc himself is building, so if he's going for right clicks, go for Heaven's Halberd and Crimson Guard. For the magic, go for Pipe. But both of them are very weak to Blade Mail, because you'll not only deal a ridiculous amount of damage back to him and his very squishy HP pool, but you might just kill the clone in the process. Now heroes that can naturally deal with his first two spells are excellent choices, because Chen can always use one of his creeps in order to mitigate the effects of Flux and tank Spark Wraiths, and the same is true for Lycan. Marcy is amazing at jumping on him and even has some repositioning abilities, but a secret to countering Arc Warden is to cheese him yourself. Arc barely counts as a cheese hero, and humorously enough, all of the actual cheese heroes counter the shit out of him. Broodmother feasts on squishy ranged mids, and she never has to worry about getting hit by either of his first two spells. Meepo can play single-player Dota even better than Arc Warden, and you're going to make him insecure by picking a real micro hero. Even the semi-cheese heroes like Phantom Lancer and Lone Druid are great picks against an Arc. Just don't pick Huskar, who apparently has a bad win rate against Arc Warden, and I couldn't necessarily tell you why. Oh, and he loses to Visage. Figure that one out on your own. In conclusion, cheese is very powerful, and you should absolutely counter it. Reminder that losing against all of these heroes actually doesn't count, so if it happens to you, feel free to send an email to Gabe and he'll definitely refund your MMR. Peace on planet Earth.